Hello, ladies and gentlemen, geometry. We're looking at 7.3, talk about arcs and chords within a circle. So kind of the relationship between the arc, the chord, and a diameter in a circle, and kind of what that looks like. So let's look here. So here's kind of the basic idea. In a circle, or in congruent circles, two minor arcs are congruent if and only if, remember, if and only if has got a very specific definition, their corresponding chords are congruent. So basically what this is saying is this. If this arc and this arc FG is congruent to arc JH. If the arc is congruent, then that means the chord, the lines, are congruent. Okay? And remember, if and only if means that it works backwards too. Okay? So if I can say the arcs are congruent, then the chords are congruent. Likewise, flip that around. If I can say that the chords are congruent, then I can say the arcs are congruent as well. So basically, if I can say these two are congruent, then these two are congruent. Likewise, flip that around. If these two, the two chords are congruent, then the arcs are also going to be congruent. So if you're looking at this, that says this is going to be chord, A, B, and C, D are congruent. So if A, B is 60, then C, D also has to be 60. All right, so this is saying that the chords are congruent. Therefore, the arcs are going to be congruent as well. All right, so in figure, circle J is congruent to circle K. That means all the pieces are congruent. Arc MN and arc PQ are congruent. Figure out chord PQ. So this tells you that the two arcs are congruent, that little tick mark. So if one is 2x plus 1, then the other one's going to be 3x minus 7. All right, so that's all I'm doing. It's just a simple algebra problem. So way back, keep your algebra skills sharp. That's going to be 8 equals x. Boom, there you go. So 8 equals x, but they want PQ, so I need to substitute it in. 3 times 8 minus 7, 24 minus 7, so that's going to be 17. So that's my answer. 17 is how long PQ is. So, same kind of idea. This time, they tell me that the arcs are congruent, which means that the chords are congruent. Same kind of idea. That is congruent to that. They have congruent chords, so that means, or they have congruent arcs, that means the chords are congruent. They have congruent chords, that means the arc is congruent. So, back to algebra. 0, 0, 3x equals 12. X is going to equal 4. But again, does that answer the question? No. They want to know what RS is. So if I substitute that in, what's 5 times 4 minus 9? 20 minus 9, that's going to be 11. So that's how big RS is. So another theorem. If a diameter of a circle is perpendicular to a chord, then it bisects the chord. So perpendicular creates a 90-degree angle. It bisects the chord and its arc. So bisect means, remember, cut in half. Okay? So if I'm looking at AB or CB, okay, my diameter, all right, it's perpendicular, so that means these two are congruent, and the chord and the arcs are congruent. So basically, splits it all the way through. Okay, so chords bisect, arcs also bisect. Chord and its arc. So pay special attention. All right, so another one. Flipping back, the perpendicular bisector of a chord is the diameter. So this is kind of working backwards. Before it's saying, if it's a radius or diameter, then it bisects a chord and is perpendicular. Now this is saying the only thing that can be perpendicular and bisect this is the radius or diameter. Okay, so this is kind of like the going backwards part of it. All right? So taking a look. In circle S, arc PQR, this arc up here is 98 degrees. Figure out PQ. Well, this radius is perpendicular. Perpendicular. That means it bisects, so it cuts in half. So that's just 98 divided by 2. That makes this 49. That makes that 49. All right, for number 5, in circle S, figure out how big PR is. Well, remember, this chord gets bisected. So if that is 6, that is also 6. PR is going to be equal to 12 units. So take a look. Circle J. The diameter is 30 inches. KM is 22 inches long. Figure out JL. Ooh, this is a good one. So diameter is 30 inches. Anytime a diameter is 30 inches, that means the radius is half that. KM is 22 inches long, but it's perpendicular. So that means it gets cut in half. That means this is 11 and this is 11. Okay? My radius is 15. All right? So my radius is 15. Radius doesn't change no matter where I am. So that's 15. But guess what? This is also 15. So let's think back a little bit. I got a right triangle where I know two sides. Guess what I can do? And if you guess Pythagorean theorem, you're the big winner, because that's exactly what I want to do here. All right? Never goes away. All right? Pythagorean theorem is here till the end of time. In fact, I think it's been here close to the beginning of time. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a squared plus 11 squared equals 15 squared. So a squared plus 121 will equal 225. All right? So a squared will equal 104. So a is going to equal the square root of 104. All right? So, as a decimal, if you really want to go that route, oops. So as a decimal, you really want to go that route, it's not really cool. It's 10.198. So that would be acceptable. If you really want to impress me, let's simplify this. So 104, you know what? If I split that into 4, that's going to be 28. You know what? I can split that into 4 again. So if you really want to impress me, oops, sorry, not 4. That's going to be 26. My bad. So if you really want to impress me, you'd go 2 square root of 26. Let me erase that. 2 square root of 26. This would be really impressive. All right, if you simplify the square root instead, give me the big, long, ugly decimal. Either one I would technically count right, but just it looks a lot better than the big, ugly decimal. So anyway, I use Pythagorean theorem because the radius changes. So you got to be a little clever with that. Kind of last idea to think about here. Two chords are congruent if and only if they are equidistant from the center. All right, so this has got to be congruent to this. That means that the chords are equidistant. All right, that means that the chords are congruent. So kind of remember, if and only if means it works backwards, okay? So if Lx is congruent to Ly, then that means FG is congruent to JH. But remember, it's if and only if. That means it works backwards too. That means if these two chords are congruent, that means that they're equidistant from the center. That's what that means. So it works forwards and backwards. All right, so if I take a look here, WX equals XY equals 22. Okay, so WX is equal to XY, which is 22. So it tells me right away that the chords are congruent. Okay, that means that they are equidistant. That means 5x equals 3x plus 4. So subtract 3x, so 2x equals 4. So x equals 2. Hopefully your algebra is getting pretty strong here. So what do they want, though? They want AB. So I'm just going to throw that in. They want AB. That's this length right here. So that length is going to be 10. All right, so come talk to me with questions. Review this, put stars and circles around the theorems, look them over, make sure you understand them, and come talk to me with questions. Thank you.